Let me tell you about endangered species, all right?
Coal-burning society may be making things hot for itself.
This is sulfuric acid, one of the more corrosive substances on Earth, and the prime ingredient in acid rain.
The garbage, the trash, the carbon monoxide, the junk. Who suffers most from it?
Because of what's happening in Greenland right now, the maps of the world will have to be redrawn.
When the five powers combine, they summon Earth's greatest champion, Captain Planet.
This is just one more arrogant attempt by humans to control nature.
How dare you!
Breaking news.
Turn the TV on right now, dude. This is huge. I'm going to be on the news.
Whatever it is, it's not right on the teleprompter.
All right, let's go over your sources again. I want to hear it.
As for the first time ever, a hockey arena becomes a scene of violence.
We're going to tell this story. We're going to tell it right.
A woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s. Sorry.
Fucking thing sucks!
The transformation from news into entertainment is disconcerting.
2 of our 4 helicopters were hit, including the one I was in.
Thanks, Tom.
No one ever gives you the full story.
That newscaster.
I hate trusting anybody.
That bastard newscaster.
You can't have a free society without a free press.
Get another source.
How many fucking sources do you think we've got?
That's not
Journalism.
Welcome into another episode of That's Not Journalism, the only podcast that encourages you to recycle. I'm Dotto, and today we're talking environmental elites. Like a fully coal-powered charged electric vehicle in a medium to high-speed collision, you won't be able to safely put out this fire of an episode. We got 2 parts coming. In today's part 1, that moron Al Gore made some Al Gore claims.
Uh-oh, retard alert!
We see a dumb commie get schooled, we'll get confused by trees, and we get a lesson from a dead comedian. That and much, much more. But let's be sure to conserve our energy for the greater good at the moment.
It's all about the greater good.
The greater good.
Before we blast off into our eco-friendly fry oil-powered vans, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have not yet. We also debut clips and feature all our game segments on the channel, and that's at TNJ Podcast. Subscribe, hit the alert bell, and you'll get a heads up on those video updates. And if you like your podcast in audio form, we're on Spotify, Apple, and all the others too. I have given myself a goal to make this podcast a little more palpable for audio listeners. I got some blue-collar buddies who'd rather listen while they work. 10-4, bosses. Thanks for checking it out. Remember that idiot Al Gore?
Dum, 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 dum.
He was in the news this week saying his bullshit mockumentary and inconvenient truth was legit. Does Dummy not know? The internet keeps receipts? I thought he invented the damn thing. We are going to tear apart 60 years of climate crisis bullshit. But let's see how wrong Al Gore was to start us off, especially in this century. Now this is from Lucy Biggers on X at LL Biggers. Check it out.
Tony Blair's scientific advisor has said that because of what's happening in Greenland right now, the maps of the world will have to be redrawn. If Greenland broke up and melted, or if half of Greenland and half of West Antarctica broke up and melted, this is what would happen to the sea level in Florida. This is what would happen to San Francisco Bay. A lot of people live in these areas.
The video has more from your favorite high school documentary, and then Lucy, she has a reaction too.
I mean, this is such an awful clip, and the reason I brought it up is because there was a recent viral clip of Al Gore where he said that none of the predictions from the past 20 years have been wrong from climate scientists.
In the view of the vast majority of the climate scientists who I trust, and whose judgment has been correct, by the way. You go back 20 years and listen to what they were warning us about then. The fact that they were proven dead right should cause us to pay more attention to what these same scientists are saying.
So what we just watched was a 20-foot rise in sea level. That's what they displayed with their computer animation. But what's really happening
We're going to take a look at something later, too, on this.
Is about 1 foot by the end of the century, okay? And then right now with Greenland, with the melting that's happening at the current rate, we have about 0.8 millimeters of sea level rise from the Greenland melt per year. So not 20 feet whatsoever. That's just so irresponsible. And the thing that frustrates me so much is so many people watch that film in high school and they never went to fact check it. And for the rest of their life, they're walking around with this idea that New York City or Florida, all these places are going to be underwater. It's such an injustice.
Well, we were in high school 20 years ago about, geez. I appreciate Lucy's take here again at LL Biggers on X. This is also a theory. I mean, if sea levels are rising, it's most likely plate tectonics and human erosion, as in the land is going away. That's what I think. The water isn't coming up. That's what makes the rise whole theory in and of itself. Next. Alrighty, not only were Al Gore and his money-grubbing buddies wrong for the last 2.5 decades, we're going to show you just how much bullshit climate news we've had to deal with over the last 60 years in this edition of Man vs. Nature.
Man vs. Nature, the road to victory.
You may have seen the meme floating around social media. I know we libertarian types see it plenty, but is this true? The 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, this next 10 years narrative, an extra caveat, and beyond, all of it bullshit? All of it to pay more taxes? You know, we're going to go through line by line, and maybe the findings will surprise you if you listen or watch every episode of this podcast, and maybe not. All right, here we go. In the 1960s, oil gone in 10 years. Just some reading here. You couldn't really find good 60-year-old air check video news show coverage. Go figure. It's called We've Been Incorrectly Predicting Peak Oil for Over a Century. It's by Matt Novak and came out back in 2014. December, so it's about 2015. When the residents of Tulsa, Oklahoma buried a car in 1957 as part of an enormous time capsule, they included containers of gasoline. The good people of Tulsa reasoned that the folks of 2007 might not have any gas left to fill up the Plymouth Belvedere that they were interring for a 50-year journey into the future. Boy, were they wrong. Throughout the 20th century, we became tremendously dependent on oil. At the risk of stating the obvious, the world would look completely different today without it. But time and again, very smart people have predicted that we'd eventually run out of oil. Time and again, these predictions were proven incorrect. You can scroll through all these different times, like 25, 30 years left back in 1909, they were saying. Now, petroleum has been used for less than 50 years, see, and it's estimated that the supply will last more than 25, 30 years longer. If production is curtailed and the waste stopped, and this just keeps going, listener. 1937, gone in 15 years. 1943, peak oil has been reached. 1945, just 13 years left. 1956, here we go, 1966. Gone in 10 years. Wow! There it is. A geologist stuck a figurative dipstick into the United States as oil supplies Tuesday and estimated that the country may be dry in 10 years. This is from August 3rd, 1966 in the Brandon Sun of Brandon, Manitoba. North America, I guess, but we are trying to look at American journalism because of the First Amendment, and if it is nobly, how do I want to say this? The First Amendment in America and journalists take advantage of it. Maybe that's the way to put it. I mean, going back to when they were trying to create the First Amendment, when Rhode Island pushed for the Bill of Rights, they still had every newspaper was just kind of politically leaning. I don't know where objectivity came from, and I don't know if it ever truly existed. It's the purpose of the podcast, I guess. We can check the 1960s off the list, but we'll point out Novak did show us the peak oil thing, went back, 1909, 37, all of those years. What's next? The 1970s, another ice age in 10 years, or better known as global cooling. Cue the audio-visual confirmations. This is a 22-minute examination from 1978. An inquiry into whether the dramatic weather changes in America's northern states mean that a new ice age is approaching. It's wordy. It's narrated by Leonard Nimoy, and it's a far cry from what we're used to seeing now in television coverage, that's for sure. Take it away, Spock. Let's say this is from Brett Peak on YouTube.
In 1977, the worst winter in a century struck the United States. Arctic cold gripped the Midwest for weeks on end. Great blizzards paralyzed cities of the Northeast. One desperate night in Buffalo, 8 people froze to death in marooned cars. Captain Bushnell was on the road that night.
Traffic just absolutely stopped. I was afraid of being stuck in the car all night long with the cold.
I remember the blizzard of '78 was big in the Northeast. They still talk about it up there.
We had to go through a real bad winter, just like we just went through. I think we'd have to think about moving someplace else.
Move where? The brutal Buffalo winter might become common all over the United States. Climate experts believe the next ice age is on its way. According to recent evidence, it could come sooner than anyone had expected.
This is real. It's 50 years ago. I love these graphics, by the way. Oh my god, and the music, take me back.
At weather stations in the far north, temperatures have been dropping for 30 years.
I'm sorry?
Seacoasts, long free of summer ice, are now blocked year-round. According to some climatologists, within a lifetime, we might be living in the next ice age.
These are the same, expert climatologists being trusted now, so which is it?
On theory and conjecture. The producer's purpose is to suggest some possible explanation, but not necessarily the only one, to the mysteries we will examine.
Of the 9 planets in our solar system, only Earth has conditions favorable to human life. Our existence depends on a delicate balance of climate.
That's what clouds used to look like, everybody.
Despite our modern technology, we are vulnerable to the whims of weather and environment. Blanketing large areas of the Earth's surface, great storms are among nature's most frightening events.
Looks like they use the same footage still.
Uncontrollable tempests make us aware how fragile life on our planet really is.
Tough lighting.
The comfortable cycle of spring sowing, summer growth, and fall harvest is, in terms of long history, abnormal. Only in the last 10,000 years has Earth enjoyed continuing warmth. Because of this, our population has exploded to 5 billion people. For most of the last million years, however, whole continents were buried by ice. As recently as 18,000 years ago, a mile-thick sheet stretched down from the Arctic Circle and covered what is now Seattle, Chicago, and Boston.
Did you learn about this in school as well?
New York Harbor was choked with ice floes. Winters were cold and snowy.
The Erie region was carved by ice. Especially living north.
Of the great glaciers that once covered North America are the ice caps of the Canadian Arctic. If the ice spreads over the continent again, it is here on Baffin Island in northern Canada that the mysterious process will begin. We look to this lonely outpost for warnings of a new ice age. Straddling the Arctic Circle, Baffin Island is a harshly beautiful wilderness. It is larger than California, but not one tree grows on the entire island. The only vegetation is the stunted plant life of the tundra.
Oh, it's a sweet fucking boat.
Most of the inhabitants are Inuit Eskimos, whose ancestors migrated west from Greenland 1,000 years ago. Today, the island is poised on the brink of ice age conditions, a critical signal post for changes in the Earth's climate.
I guess the Bering Strait was
according to geologists, the last
Hawaii
major
theory
ice
back
age
then
began on Baffin Island 115,000 years ago. Perpetual snow spread southward.
So I'm still thinking about how Eskimos come from Vikings.
The weight of many years of snow compressed into ice. The ice grew thicker, until it covered Canada, the northern United States, and Europe to a depth of 2 miles. For 100,000 years, the ice remained over large areas of the continents. Then, it retreated to the Arctic, and for the last 10,000 years, we have flourished in a warm interglacial period.
Yeah, he said that. The ice goes on another 15, 16 minutes. Those are what scientists believed, I guess. Liken it to today. Is it the same types? Who are spending the same money on the same studies? Find out as we explore more, I guess. It wasn't exactly reported news, though, or, gospel. That was just, Leonard Nimoy documentary for In Search Of. But these are. I'll spare you reading through more of these, but check out these headlines. Colder winters hold dawn of new ice age. Scientists see ice age of the future. Another ice age? The cooling world. Scientists ask why world climate is changing. Major cooling may be ahead, by Walter Sullivan. I'd say we can check the 1970s off as well. And yeah, we'll get to the taxes part. I know there's kind of twofold kind of digs in these memes we're going through. But we got to see if these decade bullets hold water first. On to the 1980s. Acid rain will destroy all crops in 10 years.
This is sulfuric acid, one of the more corrosive substances on Earth, and the prime ingredient in acid rain.
Pennsylvania receives more acid rain than any other state, and I'm worried about our future generations, in addition maybe to us.
Acid rain is harmful to buildings, statues, forests, maybe even to people.
I'm Dave Roberts for Action News. Is acid rain killing us softly? Is there anything that we can do about it? Find out in my special report beginning Tuesday night at 11 on Action News.
Action News. Enough said, I guess. No, we can do more than that. Roll it again.
There is a new environmental fear alive in the land, the fear of something called acid rain. Reports of its presence and its danger come from everywhere.
New England receives more of the acid rain than any other part of the nation.
The center of the acid rain storm is right here in Pennsylvania.
These are our friends at PBS.
Acid rain has been discovered near the Continental Divide.
We have it here in Maine, probably worse.
Prevailing winds carry acid particles into the higher altitudes of the Northeast.
The highest concentrations of acid rain fall on Berkeley and San Jose.
This area of northern Wisconsin may be the most acid-sensitive region in the Midwest.
This is from the American Archive of Public News. Appreciate it. Good to see our tax dollars kind of going to something. The McNeil Lara report on acid rain. From May of 1980. More awesome old graphics. I love it.
The alarm is ringing loud and clear on acid rain. Environmentalists, joined by the federal government and some state governments, push the button of alarm. And now, seldom a day goes by without a news story from somewhere about it.
Government's pushing the
Stories
alarm.
of lakes turning up dead.
And here's
fish
carrying out their
populations
bidding.
Of conflicts between northeastern states and midwestern states, between government and industry, between the United States and Canada, between and among all kinds of people with all kinds of interests. Even the recent eruption of Mount St. Helens.
They say today's news is too sensational, alarmist. Yeesh. It's PBS NewsHour, like I said, from May of 1980. It's American Archive site. Kicking off the decade of acid rain coverage.
Toilet rain.
More proof for these bullets actually happening and being spoken about and reported, like the memes say. We're already 3 for 3. But fine, I'll do the taxes thing starting here. Let's check in on the second claim in these memes a little more than halfway through our list now that we've done 3 of these 5. That way, we'll know if this is even worth finishing. Now, these taxes don't have to necessarily be drastic environmental legislation. I think any government activity, especially extra government, like new committees on committees, costs more money. Costs us, you and me, more money. So yeah, I'd say this 4-hour hearing on it by a congressional subcommittee counts as tax dollars wasted already. This is a hearing on work done by the National Acid Precipitation Assessment Program to prevent acid rain and the administration's report on U.S.-Canadian air pollution programs. Ah, yes. Canada. Fewer people than California, mostly living along the American border, where the rest of the country is expansive wilderness doing nothing but sucking carbon and pushing out oxygen.
That's fucked up.
Well, this program sounds expensive and stupid already. I'd love to see the abstract of the study, by the way. The data will make no sense, of course. That's what overcomplicated data collection is meant to do. It's deception. We'll talk about it in another episode someday, too. I'll give you a hint. Duke and DNA start with the same letter, and a D for a grade would be far too generous for the press surrounding Durham, North Carolina in 2006. Well, like I said, that's for another episode down the road. Let's check in on this hearing here.
Good morning. Officers, you can let our people in back there, Good morning. Subcommittee will come to order. In 1980, chairman of this subcommittee, along with a number of my colleagues, sponsored Title VII of the Energy Security Act of 1980, which is known as the Acid Precipitation Act of 1980. That law established a task force to coordinate an interagency-funded acid precipitation research program spanning 10 years and to issue reports thereon, including, when appropriate, recommendations to the administration and Congress. More than $300 million in taxpayers' funds has been devoted to that effort,
1987, by the way.
Which is now just over half complete. At that time, it was the goal of the Congress to establish a national inquiry into the causes and the consequences of acid rain and acid precipitation, to find out what the perils were, what the policy changes should be, what the benefits of policy changes should be, and to make a general and a careful study of a broad intercontinental and continental problem with regard to acid precipitation and its consequences. This was, of course, an enormously complex problem which needed careful scientific study and analysis to come to a wise and sensible national policy which...
This sounds expensive. So that's the equivalent of about $2 billion spent on studying, I guess, mitigation of this rain, this acid rain. That's the equivalent in 1980 on this study. Again, it was $380 million, I think, plus the additional money spent from that time on in the next 7 years. Again, that hearing from May of 1987. Forgot what century it was. Why not try then 1987? So $1.5 billion. I don't know. It seems like a lot of money to be spent. It seems like tax dollars will have to be increased for it. So check the 1980s off the list for this meme. 2 for 2 now. We just took a look at the 80s. Let's go back to the 1960s and 70s then, starting here in the 60s, where Congress passed nearly 24 environmental and natural resource laws. This decade is widely seen as a precursor to the environmental decade of the 1970s. We'll read farther, but I think we're already pointing out that the memes are winning. The Clean Air Act, the first federal legislation to address controlling air pollution through direct grants to state and local governments. So not stifle anything, but giving money to fix it. That's what they say when, they're going to crack down. No, they're making us pay for it. The Wilderness Act. Land and Water Conservation Act in 1965 created a fund, money, to provide for the acquisition of land and water for conservation recreational purposes. Water Quality Act. Motor Vehicle Air Pollution Control Act. So I guess it was an amendment to the original Clean Air Act in 1963. Number 8, Air Quality Act. These are the 10 biggest ones. Wild and Scenic Rivers Scenic Rivers Act of 1968. Let me try that again. Wild and Scenic Rivers Act of 1968. The National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, 1969, often called the Magna Carta of environmental laws. It required federal agencies to evaluate the environmental effects, of their actions before making decisions. Cool. How about the 70s? I mean, I doubt any of those are free. And I just gave away that it was the environmental decade. 1973 was a big year, and then the gas crises later in the episode. We should examine media coverage of that down the line, too. The gas crises. Crises. 10 most prominent ones of the 70s, according to whatever AI just chucked this into that was going to turn around the quickest results. Don't really need any sort of political compromisation. What we're doing is just trying to prove that it was covered, and that because of the coverage, it led to government action, which costs money. National Environmental Policy Act, so NEPA 69 to 70, another Clean Air Act. It's not clean enough. I mean, what have we updated it twice now already? Federal Water Pollution Control Act, 72. We go to keep it in 72. Marine Mammal Protection Act. That's a pretty fucked up one, according to the EPA Mafia. Endangered Species Act, widely considered one of the world's strongest conservation laws. Do you know that bald eagles aren't endangered anymore? Is that another failed follow-up? I'm sure it is. The media told you they're endangered, but then didn't tell you that it worked and they're good. Resource Conservation and Recovery Act established cradle-to-grave regulations for the management of hazardous and non-hazardous solid waste. Toxic Substances Control Act of 76, Federal Land Policy and Management Act of 76, and of course 1977 Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act. Do not produce our own energy here. Regulated the environmental effects of coal mining in the United States, required the land to be restored to its original state after mining. So more money. Why? It was mined. We'll learn what this guise of green washing is. I guess we'll call it greenwashing. Now onto my earliest memories of this climate environmental bullshit. Hey yo, let's bust over to the 1990s, son, and kick it with some fat facts. When I was a wee lad, we had this ultra brainwashing show called Captain Planet. What a program. Here's a little bit of what children born in the mid to late 80s were subjected to. I forgot it was some pretty sweet action. Oh boy, I see what YouTube does to me.
The world is in peril. Gaia, the spirit of the earth, can no longer stand the terrible destruction plaguing our planet. She sends 5 magic rings to 5 special young people. 1 from Africa with the power of earth. From North America, Wheeler with the power of fire.
Hell yeah, brother.
From the Soviet Union, Ninka with the power of wind. From Asia, Yi with the power of water. And from South America, Mati with the power of heart. When the 5 powers combine, they summon Earth's greatest champion, Captain Planet. The power is yours!
Captain Planet and the Planeteers, everybody. Alright, now to the 1990s. The ozone layer will be gone in less than 10 years. Good news!
Good news, everyone!
We can knock out the proof of coverage and the more taxes bid here. This is President Clinton and VP Al Gore. Creation of the Office of Environmental Policy in 1993. We didn't just get a committee on committees in the 90s. We got a whole melon farming office.
Today I'm announcing the creation of a White House Office on Environmental Policy, keeping a commitment that both the Vice President and I made to the American people to bring new leadership and new energy to these issues.
Oh, what do? They created an emergency crisis culture of acid rain and other shit from the previous 2 decades and had one of their guys running the solution, of course.
Today, reinforcing my intention to work with the Congress for legislation that will make the Environmental Protection Agency a part of my cabinet.
Yes, 2 wings on the same bird. It's hell-bent on power, lowering our population and IQ, and making us all their cash cattle.
Hey, nice fucked
And
up.
with Albie Gore being back, a reporter's going to ask him a leading question. I thought it was most likely an audience plant, to be honest, especially when I heard it, and maybe he got the question ahead of time even, but then I saw this idiot squirming and worming up there.
As well as a reorganization.
Yes. On a broader environmental question, please, what can the White House do to try to alleviate the crisis of the ozone hole? And these recent volcanoes, have they exacerbated the crisis or bought more time for the world?
See?
Well, the negotiations that have been underway for some years on the phasing out of ozone-depleting chemicals continue. The focus has shifted to chemicals beyond the chlorofluorocarbon family.
What are they called?
Substances like methyl chloroform. I'm sure you don't want to get into a lot of detail on this, but I will respond briefly to the second part of your question, because there is actually some substantial misunderstanding about the relationship between volcanic eruptions and ozone depletion. Please bear with me just for a moment here. The substances involved there go into the lower atmosphere, typically, and not into the stratosphere where the ozone depletion problem occurs. And some who have argued that the world doesn't need to do anything about the ozone depletion problem have consistently said, oh, well, this is all just a problem related to volcanoes. And the scientific community says that's simply wrong. The problem is caused by human-created chemical substances like chlorofluorocarbons.
Oh, not the erupting volcanoes throughout the 80s and gave them an excuse to create all this acid rain bullshit. Yeah, let's let him finish.
From the atmosphere. The United States has in the past been successful in helping to lead the world community toward a treaty and then improvements to that treaty, which have begun to phase out those chemicals. We now know from new evidence that the problem is indeed even more serious than was first thought, and we need to accelerate the phase out of those chemicals.
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
All right, we saw the reporter toss him up the softball question. He fucking bundled the first half of it because, he's a moron politician. Let's see this maroon get platformed in front of a room full of, I guess they're called environmental journalists. So here's the boob at MIT in 1995, Environmental Journalists' 5th Annual Conference from MIT Video Productions. Cool of them to have it up.
There's long been no doubt that it will increase temperatures, and little doubt that it has probably already done so. But the remaining uncertainty that it has already done so has been seized upon by some skeptics.
Tell us, because, he's dumb enough to say the quiet part out loud.
As an argument that we really don't know enough to act. But now they have said we do know enough to act. That didn't stop Tom DeLay, the Republican leader in the House of Representatives, from saying that the phase-out of ozone-depleting CFCs was the result of, quote, a media scare. I guess he's talking about you.
We've been looking for proof of in the next 10 years stuff, which, we could listen to these clowns talk about the ozone so far, despite finding other videos from the late 80s of officials and scientists saying like 1 million people would get skin cancer in the next 88 years.
Nope.
I don't think there would be a lot of news sites, however, that want to archive footage of themselves saying the ozone layer will be gone in the next 10 years, because this is from about 30 years ago. But hey, even woke AI helps out sometimes. Holy moly. Do we even want to move on to the 2000s, or should we just take the meme's word for it at this time, since it's pretty recent memory for all of us the last 20 years? I'm saying fuck it. Let's say we went 4 for 4 with the first 4 bullets, so it was 60s through the 90s, and we can just say we used data pattern recognition to assume the 5th. Next. You thought Al Gore was an old dolt. Meet Bernard, no middle name, Sanders. If Stuttering John from the Howard Stern Show was the hero of the stupid, then Bernie Sanders is the hero of the lazy.
And this guy's a retard, and so are you. Get out! Get out of my studio, please, John. Get out of my studio. You sicken me.
Born in 1941 in Brooklyn, New York, to Austro-Hungarian Jewish immigrants, most likely early Nazi refugees. He's claimed he's gotten into politics because of relatives killed in World War II. But it seems like all he's done is just take since. What a way to repay America for accepting your family in Auburn. We know the 84-year-old's political stance is by now a member of the small collective idiocy known as the Progressive Caucus. He's a socialist, which is pro-slavery. You want free stuff off the work of others. It's called slavery. He says he's an independent, but he receives big money from Democrat donors and runs for president as a Dem every 4 years or so. By the way, that would be the party of slavery, property seizure, and of course the KKK.
The N-word!
He says he marched for civil rights, worked as a carpenter, and has just been about community engagement his whole life. Here's more on his life. Now, this is from the American Spectator. It's funded primarily by Emmett Tyrell Jr., conservative dudes, conservative rag. That's about it. It's kind of pushing the conservative agenda, kind of the way the majority of media pushes the liberal agenda. I mean, that's about it, but I'm sure there's some issue with it. The article is written by Emily Zanotti, and it's from February of 2016, so thinking back to Trump's first kind of run, or the beginning of it. So Bernie Sanders, and obviously Sanders was in the field then too, that massive field of Democrats and Republicans. Bernie Sanders didn't make a paycheck until he turned 40, is what they're saying. They say Bernie Sanders is beloved by a lot of people who live in their parents' basement and work part-time to pay the bare minimum on the student loans they collected in pursuit of their gender studies degrees. Speculative, but it's conservative rag, I get it. Ostensibly, this is because your typical millennial ne'er-do-well is fascinated by the idea of receiving things for free from the government in return for maintaining their citizenship, or because they heard about Bernie Sanders and their subversive knitting group, or picked up a campaign flyer at an Urban Outfitters. It's not the best writing. But if it turns out that the takers of the world are seeing their own reflection in Bernie's LensCrafters clearance section specs, it's because it turns out Bernie Sanders is indeed one of their own, a man who failed to earn a decent paycheck for actual work until almost his 40th birthday. Despite the prestigious degree, however, Sanders failed to earn a living even as an adult. If it took him 40 years to collect his first paycheck, that was a government check. Here's a quote, "I never had any money my entire life," Sanders told Vermont Public TV, Vermont Public, I think is what they call it, in 1985, after settling into his first real job as mayor of Burlington. Sanders spent most of his life as an angry radical and agitator who never accomplished much of anything. This is a tough read. And yet he thinks he deserves the power to run your life and your finances. "We will raise taxes," he confirmed Monday. "Yes, we will," quote, quote. One of his first jobs was registering people for food stamps, and it was all downhill from there. Sanders took his first bride to live in a maple sugar shack with a dirt floor, and she soon left him. Penniless, he went on to unemployment, and then he had a child out of wedlock. Desperate, he tried carpentry, but could barely sink a nail. Quote, "He was a shitty carpenter," a friend told Politico magazine. I think this does stem from a Politico magazine original biography. Not original biography, but originally a biographic piece from Politico. It seems to be hobbled together, and again, it's not the best writing.
Uh-oh, retard
His carpentry was not going to support him, and didn't, quote. Then he tried his hand freelancing for leftist rags, writing about masturbation and rape, quote, and other crudities for $50 a story. He drove around in a rusted-out, Bondo-covered VW Bug with no working windshield wipers. Friends said, I'm sure, again, he joined the party to make sure they put enough regulations on so it's illegal for you to even drive something with Bondo on it these days. I fucking hate boomers. Friends said he was, quote, always poor, and his, quote, electricity was turned off a lot, quote. They described him as a slob who kept a messy apartment. And this is what his friends had to say about him. The only thing he was good at was talking, non-stop, about socialism and how the rich were ripping everybody off. So basically, Bernie Sanders was the jobless friend who hangs around coffee shops where he cons you into buying his drink only to talk your ear off about how amazing that Che Guevara was and how he is living off the grid in an apartment without flooring or heat because he doesn't trust the man, because the man is totally in the pocket of corporate America, even though you're meeting in a Starbucks and his order was way more complicated than yours. That's not bad. A long way to get to it, but there you go, Emily. Every once in a while he mentions running for office, but it's usually left as a pipe dream because he's too lazy to get around to forming up a campaign. Well, we know now 10 years later that's not necessarily the case. Scrolling through, it's not enough that Sanders had the kind of rough upbringing that would lead one to assume his level of success was unprecedented within his family, although he did grow up poor, as Business Insider notes. He did well enough, that his family did well enough, to send him to the University of Chicago, presumably where he acquired his left-wing views, to get a degree he apparently never used except as a resume builder, and then when he was angling for government paycheck 40 years later. But I suppose his utter lack of economic education had to come from somewhere. Yeah, I guess you tried him. Here he is, trying to explain how climate change works now.
And I know that, there are some people who think climate change is a hoax. It ain't a hoax. I think the last 10 years have been the warmest on record.
I think the climate change issue is very complicated. And I think, did you see the Washington Post piece that they wrote where they did this long-term view? First of all, the reality is that the Earth's temperature has never been static, right? We could both agree on that. It's always been up and down. There's been ice ages and heat waves. And then the Washington Post looked at it. What was the time period that they looked at? That essentially they found that we're in a cooling period. That the Earth over the past X amount of years, and this was like a very inconvenient discovery, but they had to report the data, and kudos to them for doing that. Scientists have captured the Earth's climate change over the last 485 million years. Here's a surprising place we stand now. So look at the far end of that graph, and you see we're in a cooling period.
Well, I'm not sure. I didn't read that article, but
yeah.
The scientists who are out there, I think.
I know, but there's a lot of money involved in that too, Bernie. That's part of the problem. There's a lot of money involved in this whole climate change emergency issue, and there's a lot of control, and that's a big part of this problem. Not only that, if we're just talking about primarily carbon and carbon footprint, what are we going to do about China? Because China...
Absolutely. It's not an American issue. It is a global issue. And all I can tell you is that we are, in my view, going to see more extreme weather disturbances in the coming years than we have ever. And we're seeing them right now.
Right, but scientists don't agree. Well, this is where it gets confusing. Because scientists that are in agreement... There's all these entanglements whenever someone's discussing something, whether it's economics or whether it's health issues or pharmaceutical drugs, there's financial entanglements. I think we both agree with that, right?
Yep.
And I think this is part of the issue with this whole climate change emergency as well, because whenever there's an issue that everyone can agree on, you're going to have a bunch of people that capitalize on that issue, and they look to gain more money. They have financial issues that they push forward in order to capitalize on this issue, but then also power and control.
This is from the Young Americans for Liberty, their Facebook page. They had the clip. Hard to find videos of this sort of conversation when using compromised search engines these days. You heard them mention carbon in the video, and boy, I'm getting confused. It's a photo of something very complicated all of a sudden. It's a tree. When I was, 5 or 6 years old, we were told trees remove carbon dioxide and other carbon isotopes from the atmosphere and carbon molecules and replace them with O2 oxygen, helping us breathe. Climate goals made by climate scientists from the 2015 Paris Agreement aim to remove something like 42 to 48% of carbon from the Earth's atmosphere. Here's what an adult had to say about that. It's from Instagram. Bear with me.
2006, the word carbon has been demonized as kind of the problem of the planet. And of course, most of the time it's talking about CO2 and fossil fuel kind of burning and things like this. It turns out, though, biologically, carbon is actually the most important substrate that we can speak of if we're going to talk about life. So what the heck is carbon? Carbon is basically the communication network for the energy potential of the future. And so when death happens, a huge burst of carbon will move out of that structure to signal that there's a new energy source. There's an opportunity for new life to happen. CO2, methane, all of these things are discharged from plants that are dying, humans that are dying. Any organic material, plant, animal, otherwise, is a huge carbon sink. It's a huge reservoir of energy. The building blocks for that energy system is CO2.
This is the Minimalists
podcast
so for
government to come along and say CO2 is a poison, and
this is from their
we're gonna
Instagram.
start pumping that stuff out of the atmosphere because it's killing the planet. All I can tell you is they are absolutely fundamentally wrong. CO2 is always the building block for the new potential energetics or metabolism for life. We're coming along with chemicals now and overplowing, and we're starving the earth of its opportunity.
The industrial farming complex.
So when the topsoil dies, the earth cannot breathe. And so we've basically induced a situation of emphysema where there's plenty of gas to be exchanged. The person with emphysema is breathing.
Think about what you learned when you were 5 or 6 about carbon in trees and oxygen.
But they can't utilize that resource because the lung surface has disappeared.
Why would removing it
And so
make
as
sense?
we knew,
Well,
97% of our arable soils are now
it's the other way
denuded
around.
of
Look down from
nutrients
the sky.
and microbiology that can cycle that life. The earth is in a long breath hold. The vast majority of what we call waste on this planet is massive gigatons of potential energy. And all of the CO2 in the atmosphere is the batteries of the future.
I'll say again, the industrial farming complex. The same reason this multi-headed monster couldn't be conquered by RFK Jr.'s anti-Monsanto pesticides angle. It's too big. It's just too damn big, and people are too damn dependent. It would have shut down the food supply overnight if they'd done that. Grow your own vegetables, folks. Hunt your own meat. Next. It's 2026. We're 2 years past when AOC said the world would end. Look it up. And I think that Al Gore fellas said sea level should have risen a few feet by now. Here's multimillionaire Dan Pena on climate change. Excuse me, here's multimillionaire businessman Dan Pena on climate change.
Now let's just for a moment say that it is true. That means that the best scenario vis-a-vis global warming is about 10 feet raise in water. That's the best scenario over the next 40, 50 years. That's the best scenario. The worst scenario is about 100 feet. But let's just take the 10 feet. If the water on the planet is going to rise up 10 feet, that means the southern part of the United States is gone. England is gone. Most of Europe is gone. And I can go, most of Central America is gone. Okay. If that's the case, let's just take Florida, for example. In the prospectus, when you invest, there should be, in the footnotes, if global warming is for real, they won't put it that way, global warming happens and water rises 10 feet, this investment you made is not one single investment prospectus written since 2000, this century, has alluded to global warming. If it were really true, the banks wouldn't invest. The banks wouldn't finance. And I'm jealous of the Vice President, Gore. I am jealous he came up with a scam before I did. Because the financial institutions, the banks of this world know it's not going to happen. Otherwise, you couldn't get a goddamn loan in London. You know those 30, 40-year mortgages? The world will be over by then. With the greatest respect, ma'am, it's the greatest fraud that's been perpetrated on mankind this century.
And we'll meet the people perpetrating that fraud and making money off of all of this soon enough. I was, Dan Pena giving a, TED Talk in London. This podcast exists to point out that you never really read or heard a lot of voices like those in supposed unbiased, objective media coverage over the last few years. It's not necessarily just platforming these people, it's just that you never heard these kind of stances before. And going through each of the last half dozen or so decades and checking off the facts of a goofy anti-excessive tax meme, we notice a pattern of special interests. You know, who are these people making the money off each of these increasingly excessive overreaches destroying the dollar and tearing freedom to enjoy nature away from us. Do not interfere with a man's role in nature. As George Carlin said, let them go gracefully. Gracefully into a game.
It's game time. Game time. Game time on the TNJ pod. Gonna guess what they said next on the TNJ pod. Was it racist? Was it sexist? Or all of the above? Was it inspirational or over sensational? Of course it was.
I think it was VH1 or Comedy Central or some other Viacom product. They were running the 100 Greatest Stand-Ups of All Time special, complete with commentary and such. George Carlin beat out Richard Pryor for the top spot, if I do remember. That was like 20 plus years ago, we're talking. Here's George from about 30 years ago.
Have people like this around you? Country's full of them now. People walking around all day long, every minute of the day, worried about everything. Worried about the air, worried about the water, worried about the soil. Worried about insecticides, pesticides, food additives, carcinogens. Worried about radon gas, worried about asbestos. Worried about saving endangered species. Let me tell you about endangered species, all right? Saving endangered species is just one more arrogant attempt by humans to control nature. It's arrogant meddling. It's what got us in trouble in the first place. Doesn't anybody understand that? Interfering with nature. Over 90%, way over 90% of all the species that have ever lived on this planet, are gone. They're extinct. We didn't kill them all. They just disappeared. That's what nature does. They disappear these days at the rate of 25 a day. And I mean regardless of our behavior. Irrespective of how we act on this planet, 25 species that were here today will be gone tomorrow. Let them go gracefully. Leave nature alone. Haven't we done enough? We're so self-important. So self-important. Everybody's going to save something now. Save the trees, save the bees, save the whales, save those snails. And the greatest arrogance of all, save the planet. What? Are these fucking people kidding me? Save the planet? We don't even know how to take care of ourselves yet. We haven't learned how to care for one another. We're going to save the fucking planet? I'm getting tired of that shit. I'm tired of fucking Earth Day. I'm tired of these self-righteous environmentalists, these white bourgeois liberals who think the only thing wrong with this country is there aren't enough bicycle paths. People trying to make the world safe for their Volvos. Besides, environmentalists don't give a shit about the planet. They don't care about the planet. Not in the abstract, they don't. Not in the abstract, they don't. You know what they're interested in? A clean place to live. Their own habitat. They're worried that someday in the future they might be personally inconvenienced. Narrow, unenlightened self-interest doesn't impress me. Besides, there is nothing wrong with the planet. Nothing wrong with the planet. The planet is fine. The people are fucked. Difference. The planet is fine. Compared to the people, the planet is doing great. Been here 4.5 billion years. Did you ever think about the arithmetic? Planet has been here 4.5 billion years. We've been here, what, 100,000? Maybe 200,000? And we've only been engaged in heavy industry for a little over 200 years. 200 years versus 4.5 billion. And we have the conceit to think that somehow we're a threat? That somehow we're going to put in jeopardy this beautiful little blue-green ball that's just a-floating around the sun? The planet has been through a lot worse than us. Been through all kinds of things worse than us. Been through earthquakes, volcanoes, plate tectonics, continental drift, solar flares, sunspots, magnetic storms, the magnetic reversal of the poles, hundreds of thousands of years of bombardment by comets and asteroids and meteors, worldwide floods, tidal waves, worldwide fires, erosion, cosmic rays, recurring ice ages, and we think some plastic bags and some aluminum cans are going to make a difference? The planet isn't going anywhere. We are. We're going away. Pack your shit, folks. We're going away. And we won't leave much of a trace either. Thank God for that. Maybe a little styrofoam. Maybe. Little styrofoam. Planet will be here and we'll be long gone. Just another failed mutation. Just another closed-end biological mistake. An evolutionary cul-de-sac.
What did George Carlin say next? Is it A, the planet's gonna pick us off like a bunch of ticks? B, the planet's gonna blow us off like a pile of dead leaves? C, the planet's gonna shake us off like a bad case of fleas? Or D, the planet's gonna cook us off like a fever virus? And our answer is...
Planet will be here and we'll be long gone. Just another failed mutation. Just another closed-end biological mistake. An evolutionary cul-de-sac. The planet will shake us off like a bad case of fleas. A surface nuisance. You want to know how the planet's doing? Ask those people at Pompeii who are frozen into position from volcanic ash how the planet's doing.
It was C for Carlin. Thanks for tuning in. We're back, part 2.
How can this be for the greater good? Shut it!
I'll show myself out until we meet again. Good night.
Have you ever felt like an ad had intelligence? Pay attention to me! I'm trying to ruin you!
The bus isn't gonna run unless I get confirmation from your side.
And I, for one, welcome our new insect overlords.
No, dude, that's not real news. I'm a Marine, Don. I will beat the shit out of you. I don't care how many protein bars you eat.
This has been the CBS Evening News.
You're just a big, fat pussy.
It's no concern of mine if it's turned his life upside down, face.
You are fake news.
Journalism